Good morning. You're watching Denver 7 News at 9 a.m. this Sunday. I'm Brian Sanders.
And I'm Katie LaSalle. Thank you for being here. We're following breaking news for you this morning. An Arvada police officer was killed in the line of duty overnight.
Certainly hate to bring you such heavy news this early in the day, but Denver 7's Christian Lopez has been at the scene near 51st and Marshall. This is just north of I-70 and I-76 for hours now. And Christian, what do we know about what happened?
Yeah, we've been out here all morning. We've talked to neighbors, several of them telling us the same thing. They woke up to the sound of screaming and gunshots, and it's still a very active scene here on West 51st Avenue and Marshall Street. This officer has been blocking off this area for several hours now, and one neighbor that we talked to who didn't want to be identified said that her mom has lived in this neighborhood for 20 years, so she's always here visiting her, and she told us she was terrified when she heard what was going on.
You could just hear a woman screaming and you couldn't tell where the gunshots were coming from. Over and over and over and over. And my friend was outside walking their dog and the dog just scrambled inside. Everybody just ran inside because you couldn't tell north, south, east, or west where those shots were coming from.
Yeah, scary moments for her and for several neighbors in the area. This morning, a procession transported the officer from Lutheran Hospital to the Jefferson County Coroner's Office. What we know so far is that the officer was responding to a disturbance call in this neighborhood at around 1 a.m. when they were killed. Arvada Police is expected to host a press conference at 9:30 this morning. That is where they will be releasing the latest details. We're going to stay on the scene and continue gathering more information, but our hearts are certainly with the officers' loved ones this morning. I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
Yeah, and with the community, because Arvada Police just lost an officer a little more than a year ago, and they are still recovering from the loss of Gordon Beasley. So we will bring you more from that 9:30 press conference as soon as we learn more about the officer involved in this incident. Thank you, Christian.
And now to some other headlines that we're following for you on this Sunday.
This morning, hundreds of people are in Aurora out of their homes after an explosion at an apartment complex. This was off of Alameda and Sable. 3 people were taken to the hospital, but Aurora Fire says their injuries are not life-threatening, so some good news there. But those who lived in the building told us they were woken up by a fire alarm and the smell of smoke. And after they evacuated and firefighters had arrived, that's when part of the building exploded.
I woke up, got out of the door within the first 10 minutes, and realistically within the next 10 minutes, I was standing directly in front of where the explosion went off. And it was like a movie to me, man, that the explosion went off.
We're certainly glad that he's okay, but the cause of the explosion is still under investigation. Meanwhile, the apartment complex is providing hotel rooms for tenants displaced.
Wow. We have some good news and some bad news from Aurora PD this morning. In the last 30 days, crime is down in Aurora in almost every category. The department is hopeful that the trend is a result of their DART program, a team meant to target violent crime in Aurora. But the bad news here, Colorado is the worst state in the nation for car thefts per capita. In Aurora alone, motor vehicle theft has risen more than 200% between 2019 and 2021.
Are the homes and storage closets this morning feeling a little less cluttered? Well, our Denver 7 crews, including the 2 of us, were out at the electronics recycling drive.
Yeah, if you came by and said hi, great to have you out. We had so many people drive through and drop off their unused or outdated equipment yesterday. We teamed up with Techno Rescue for the 2nd straight year to host our electronics recycling drive at Dick's Sporting Goods Park in Commerce City. Organizers say they collected around 145,000 pounds of electronics yesterday.
Old TVs, old computers, but you see the jackets and you see the gloves. It was cold and wet. I was having to dance and do jumping jacks to stay warm out there, so it's really nice to see the sun this morning.
Yeah, isn't it great? Just what a difference a day makes, where we were chilly in the 50s yesterday for highs. This morning we started off with some cloud cover and areas of fog, but now it is mostly clear from downtown Denver out through Westminster and up into the mountains. A live look at a crystal clear Rocky Mountain National Park sky this morning, and will stay that way through most of the day. It has been a cooler start to our Sunday. Temperatures now are in the high 40s, low 50s over much of the metro area. As the sun rises, we'll see warmer conditions settle in across the Front Range. Right now we're in the 40s after starting off in the 20s in Leadville, so it was really cold early on in some of our mountain towns. 50s filtering into the eastern plains. Here's a look at our hourly planner for the rest of your Sunday. Still quite cool through about lunchtime at 65 degrees, but pleasant this afternoon. Mostly sunny skies, winds will be calm, and daytime highs in the upper 70s here over the metro area, 60s and even 70s and low 80s return to some of our mountain towns with a high of 78 in Denver. Some pretty toasty weather though will return, more summertime heat builds to start the week. Your full forecast still to come.
Well, today also marks 21 years since the worst terror attack on the United States, as we take a live look from New York City this morning as they memorialize the lives lost, nearly 3,000, and read each of the victims' names. Many times these are family members or city officials or first responders that read the names of the victims along with the New York City police and fire departments on hand. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are remembering the day at the Pentagon and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Of course, it was a devastating day across the country that we will never forget. And the way our country came together in the days after the attack on 9/11/2001. So at Red Rocks this morning, firefighters and members of the public will simulate the 110-story climb that firefighters had to go through inside the World Trade Center. It is organized by the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. About 2,000 people signed up for the event out at Red Rocks. All the money raised goes to support the families of New York firefighters who died in 9/11. Organizers have already reached their goal of $100,000 raised this year.
When I first climb up on top of the fire truck to address the crowd before we start climbing, and I see the number of people that turn out every year, it really takes my breath away, and it makes me feel hopeful for our future as a country and as a community. As you know, there's a lot of divisiveness in the world today, and 9/11 I think is one of those days where we can all come together and agree on one thing, and that's that we're Americans. We're all in this together.
The stair climb just started at 9 o'clock this morning.
Now to overseas, where it's been more than 6 months since Russia invaded Ukraine. But this weekend, Ukrainian forces are making headway in driving Russia out of the eastern part of the country. Russian troops have now abandoned a key city after a Ukrainian counteroffense. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made a surprise trip to Ukraine earlier this week, meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky to announce $2.6 billion in additional military and humanitarian aid.
And so as the fight continues overseas, a Broomfield nurse is back in Colorado after spending months helping on the front lines in Ukraine.
So she sat down with our Denver 7's Patrick Perez to talk about what she saw and the message she really wants to share from the Ukrainian people.
So this will go directly on the wound. You'll keep pressure on as you apply it.
It takes a certain kind of person to pack up and leave for a country at war. For Rebecca Masharowski, it didn't take much thought.
I think everybody watched the news in February, early March, and was like, oh, this is horrible. Somebody should do something. I didn't want to be a part of the bystander. I wanted to jump in and help.
After taking a leave of absence from her nursing job, Rebecca arrived in Ukraine in March, and almost immediately her skills were put to the test.
What I saw was really sad. It's really sad. Just complete devastation of people's homes, people's grocery stores, hospitals.
She volunteered with a Ukrainian-led group called Hospitalers. Her main goal was to help with medical evacuations. That meant picking up soldiers injured in combat, treating them in an ambulance, and taking them to the nearest hospital.
We could fit up to 4 in our ambulance to the hospital, and you're still washing the blood out of the ambulance. You get a call, okay, you have to go back, there's another one.
Some of the soldiers would die before Rebecca and her team could get to them.
You look at the birth date and you're like, how is he even fighting?
But the devastating effects of the invasion were just as harmful to the civilians. Many were forced to leave behind the life they've always known while escaping.
We saw a lot of pets left behind. People didn't have the resources to evacuate their animals, so I became the dog mom of the village we were in, which was a fun role. These pressure dressings are so valuable.
Now back in Broomfield, Rebecca hopes to continue spreading the concerns her Ukrainian counterparts have about the world forgetting them and moving on.
The Ukrainian people would beg me when I got back, please tell people what's happening, show them what's happening, because they really believe that if people understood and saw what was happening over there, surely they wouldn't let it continue.
Patrick Perez, Denver 7.
Well, Apple has unveiled its newest products and its new features, but as you weigh whether or not to upgrade your devices, we have some advice on how to save money right now with your smartphone.
And no longer do you have to be on campus to attend the school of your dreams. I'll introduce you to the Denver company making college degrees more attainable.